Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl taking you to new heights. This is your forecast for the new moon in Gemini, which happens on Friday, May 22nd, 2020 at 1:38 p.m. Eastern Time or 10:38 a.m. Pacific Time. What I think this new moon in Gemini is really all about is about us trying to get a new perspective on life, a new way of thinking about life, a new way of talking about life, and one that is much more easy, much more fun, much more lighthearted about life, especially now that so much has recently changed. But even though we're trying to get a new perspective on life that is much easier than what we have had, there could still be some problems doing that. There could be problems doing that because there could still be some things from the past creeping in on our new life that everything is now bottlenecking through, preventing us from moving on. These things from the past, as a result, could create some anger or some frustration that we might have to work through so that we can pave the way into these new ways of thinking and talking that are now coming. All right, so that's what this new moon in Gemini is all about. If you are interested in learning more about that, please stay tuned. Stay tuned to right now. I'm actually going to go ahead and get started without any announcements. The first thing that I always like to do when I do these horoscopes is to place the new moon on the chart. I like to do that so that you can see how I come up with the things that I come up with, so that I can seem more legit and so that you can learn astrology as well. So I'm going to do that first. What I'm going to do, find the new moon. The new moon in Gemini is right here. How do I know that it's there? Because we've got the moon and the sun at the same degree almost in this chart and the same sign. Okay, this chart isn't quite for the new moon. It's a little bit beforehand. Okay, but this is where the new moon in Gemini is. And what are new moons all about? New moons are all about new beginnings and all about fresh starts. Now, these aren't major new beginnings. These aren't big ones. They're small. Because it's a new moon, these are new beginnings that start small, below the surface, perhaps even subconsciously, that become bigger as the weeks move on. All right. What small new beginning or small fresh start is happening? Well, Gemini. What does Gemini have to do with? Gemini is a Mercury ruled sign. So Gemini has to do with what? Thinking and talking. So we are getting a new way of thinking about our lives and talking about our lives. What else does Gemini have to do with? Well, Gemini is an air sign. What is an air sign about? It's about logic and intellect and not about emotion. So another interpretation. Not only is this new moon in Gemini about us getting a new way of thinking and talking about life, but it's also about us getting a new way of thinking and talking about life that is not as emotional as we may have recently been with a lot of other things going on in the astrology. It's about us getting a new way of thinking and talking about our lives that is a bit more air, a bit more lighthearted, a little bit more, I think, in some ways, Gemini, a little bit more playful. That helps us to move on, right? So those are two interpretations there. One other one I might add as well is Gemini. Gemini has a lot to do with our immediate environment. It has to do with the things that are familiar to us, the things that we know like the back of our hands, which we see every day, in which Gemini also rules our hands. So this new moon in Gemini is not just about us getting a new way of thinking and talking that's more lighthearted and a lot less emotional. It's also about us becoming more familiar with our lives and making our lives and where they now are, more familiar, more relatable in some way, shape, or form. Now, why is this necessary? Why are these different interpretations that I gave you necessary? In order to tell you that, I'm going to take a minute to talk about the past and to zoom out and to give you the larger context of what's going on. To do that, I'm going to have to go back to our great friends, Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter. However, I'm not going to give you the details about this alignment. I'm just going to summarize to make it quick. Okay. What's happened with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, just to summarize, is that with these alignments, we have been trying to change our lives to overcome old things, old structures, old habits, old patterns in our lives that have persisted for years, decades. We've been trying to overcome those things so that we could step into new chapters, new patterns, and new habits in life. We've been trying to overcome old things because we either did not like the old chapters in our lives that may have persisted for decades, or we maybe have grown out of them and wanted new things. And somewhere between April of last year, April of 2019 and April of 2020, this year, like a few months ago, somewhere in between April of 2019 and April of 2020, we found a way to do that. We found a way to separate from the habits and the structures and the patterns of the past few decades and set ourselves up in new patterns, new structures for the next few decades of our life from here on out until Saturn and Pluto meet once again 35 years down the line. Okay? And this new moon in Gemini is saying, you're in a new place in life. You're in a new place in life than you've been in a very, very long time. Because you're in a new place in life, now it's time to make this new place in life more familiar. And now it's time to get more comfortable with this new place. And now it's time to get less emotional about this new place because you're in it and you're not having to make as many of the changes. So there's some of that goes on. If it's not saying, now that you're in a new place in life, you have to get more familiar with it and be less emotional, then this new moon is also saying, now that you're in a new place in life, you also have to get a new way of thinking and approaching your life and a new way of talking about it as well, so that you don't bring the old thought patterns into the new life with the new patterns, okay? So there's a lot of that's going on. That is what I think a lot of this new moon is about, just to give you the context. Now, if I wanted to go back to the new moon and zoom in a little bit to get a little bit closer about what it's about, I'm going to talk now about the aspects the new moon is making. The closest aspect the new moon is making in Gemini is going to be a trine over here to Saturn, which is in Aquarius. So what is this about? Well, I believe this is about us Gemini thinking and talking Aquarius in unique ways. Thinking and talking in unique ways. Why are we thinking and talking in unique ways? So that we can get that different perspective that is going to allow us to make a new life more familiar, and that's going to allow us to be more lighthearted. So what's happening at this new moon in Gemini here, trine Saturn and Aquarius, is that we are mulling over a lot of thoughts, possibilities, things in our mind. We're mulling over a lot of thoughts, possibilities, and things in our mind so that we can get this new perspective, that we need to move forward. We're also, with the Aquarius influence, Aquarius has a lot to do with the future. We're also thinking a lot about our future as well and what comes next. Now that we're in a new place and it's becoming more familiar, now we also want to think about where we could go with this new place. Because where we could go with this new place might make us enjoy it a little bit more. It might make us feel a little bit better about it without all the emotions. So there's a lot of stuff going on in our head at this new moon in Gemini. I'm in a new place. How do I feel? What about this in the new place? What about this perspective? What about that? Mulling a lot of things over in our mind in order to think about it differently. I believe I like this alignment, helping us to do it. However, I suppose I should note that trines aren't always positive. It depends on which planets are involved, and this is Saturn. So I'm going to give you a little bit more flavor to the interpretation. Okay, if this isn't us knowing immediately what different perspective we want to get on life and having all these crazy thoughts about what our life could be so that we can feel more familiar in it, then sometimes the trine to Saturn can delay the perspective, can delay the thought, can restrict us from getting the perspective that it is that we need in order to move forward in this different way. So if some of us aren't getting a lot of insights, I'm going to think this way about life and I'm going to think this way and this is different and this is going to help, then there could be some of us that are feeling like, well, my answer's not coming. I'm not quite sure. It's hard for me to see what's next. It's hard for me to figure things out. That could be a little bit difficult. But even though Saturn can sometimes restrict and slow things from coming down, we have to remember that Saturn is now in Aquarius. And whenever you see a planet in Aquarius, it's always a bit unpredictable. Planets in Aquarius, you never know what they're going to do. So even though some of us could be feeling a bit restricted from getting the new perspective at the new moon with this alignment, we could get an insight unexpectedly just as fast to clear the restriction that's coming in. All right. And maybe that's all I'll say about that alignment before I move on and add more pieces of the puzzle. So just to recap, before I move forward, what's happening at this new moon in Gemini is that we are trying to become more familiar in a very new place that we are now in life. That's less stressful and less emotional, and that helps us move forward with a totally different mindset. In order to get this new mindset and this new perspective to make our life more familiar, we may be having lots of thoughts and lots of conversations with ourselves or with other people to figure out what this new perspective is and what we can create down the line. It could at first be hard for us to get that different, better, unique, more freeing perspective that we need in order to move forward feeling better at first. However, we could receive a sudden or unexpected insight helping us to get that very quickly and move forward. Okay? I like that a lot. But even though I like this alignment a good bit, Trine to Saturn, sure, can be a little bit restricting, but I don't know, I have good vibes about this alignment. Even though I like this alignment a lot, there is a hard one, because at the same time the new moon is making the trine to Saturn, it's also making the square over here to Mars and Pisces, and this is very hard. Why is this hard? It's a square, first of all, and it's Mars, second of all, and Mars is in Pisces, third of all, which is like a whole other thing. So what can this bring? Well, I'll give you a negative and a positive interpretation, but I'm going to start with the negative because that to me is more accurate for this situation. What can this bring? Square to Mars. Anger, frustration. Anger and frustration at yourself directed inwardly, or anger and frustration directed outwardly. I should also note that with Mars being in Pisces, this could be real interesting kind of anger. This could be anger that triggers emotional outbursts. Instead of yelling and facing things head on, sometimes Mars in Pisces cries, gets mad and then cries, or is a little passive aggressive, or is mad and doesn't know how to handle it. So this can create some really weird things. Anger and frustration and sadness and emotions all over the place and not sure what to do with it and how to handle it and how to express it, that could come. Okay, to give you the negative interpretation. Why are we angry, sad, frustrated, emotional outbursts, all the things? Why are we feeling that? Well, Mars is in Pisces, and Pisces has to do with what? The past. We're feeling angry, frustrated, sad, emotional about the past, especially with Venus retrograde now. We're feeling sad, angry, and emotional about relationships, money, and things that are very important to us from the past that perhaps we feel like aren't fully resolved, aren't fully finished, aren't fully cleared up, aren't fully closed out, aren't fully understood, that are what? Preventing us from getting comfortable in this new space and moving forward on a different version of our future that we like and that we can feel more at ease in. And there's a part of us that's frustrated. Well, that's not frustrated, but that's frustrated. There's a part of us that's not frustrated because we're starting to feel like we can get comfortable in a new space and move forward on it. But there's another part of us that is frustrated because even though we're starting to feel better and move on, the past is still around. The past is still coming back. It could be literal things from the past coming back. A person from the past coming back you didn't want to see, or you got a lot of feelings about now coming back. It's not a person from the past, an event from the past, and it could just be a feeling from the past. I thought I had dealt with that feeling. I thought I had dealt with this feeling. I haven't. It's back. Hi, it's me again. There's like this thing that's frustrating us. I thought I had dealt with this thing from the past. I just want to move on. I just want to move on. I've been trying so hard to move on. And it's still stuck. I'm still stuck. I'm still back there to that thing. And I feel like we're a little bit frustrated and we're a little bit angry about it. It's this sense of duality. How Gemini is that? Gemini is the twins. There's always two things going on with Gemini. Thinking about the future, getting comfortable in the moment now, fine, past. And we're torn, we're like split. I'm okay about the future, I'm getting used to it, but the past, that's hard. That's gonna bring up a lot of emotions that we're gonna have to work through, process, mentally, intellectually, talk about, think about, okay? That could be hard. If this isn't hard though, and if this were to go another way, make no mistake, this typically goes very hard at first. If this were to go another way, and if some of us were to get the positive alignment of it, instead of this new moon square Mars bringing anger, this can bring real passion and drive. Mars, passion and drive. This could bring real passion and drive for us to say, no. I am moving forward in this different space, making it comfortable. This old stuff from the past needs to go. I'm going to figure it out. This can bring real passion and drive for us to say, There's something from the past preventing me from moving on. I have to figure it out. I have to get to the bottom of it. I have to understand what's happening, no matter how long it takes in order to move me forward. And instead of us feeling angry that all this old stuff comes up, we could start to tackle the old stuff more head on in order to move forward. It could go either way, depending on who you are and your circumstance, or it could go both. We can be both angry about the past and wanting to tackle it at the same time. We can be both excited about the future and angry about the past and wanting to tackle it. We can be all those things all together, you know? There's a lot of ways this could play out, but there's a lot of this feeling going on. I'm trying to move forward, making my life now more familiar and more lighthearted so that I can step into a better future, but I'm being pulled backwards by the past. I'm really angry that I'm being pulled backwards by the past. Really frustrated, really sad, a lot of weird emotions about all this old stuff. But maybe if I face this old stuff, maybe if I deal with it, it'll finally leave. I'll finally get the closure. All this stuff will stop bottlenecking me, will stop tripping me up from moving on, so that I can get to the place that I see, or I'm starting to see, or ultimately want to be. Okay, that's going on there. That could be hard. But even though it's hard and we've got this back and forth, I do believe that we have some support, at least for the time being. That's because at the same time, the new moon is making all these aspects. It's also making a sextile over here to Chiron in the sign of Aries. So what this to me indicates is that even though we are trying to get comfortable with where we are now and frustrated about being pulled back into the future, this alignment does make me think that we are in some way able to maneuver, don't want to say maneuver, this dichotomy, that we are in some way able to maneuver these different feelings so that we can adapt to them, adapt our mindset, adapt our perspective, or adapt our way of handling this conflict within us so that we can move on. Because I like it. Another reason why I think that we're able to manage some of the emotions, at least for the time being, at least for the new moon. Another reason why I think why we may be able to handle some of these anger, frustration, bad emotions, or beat them temporarily is not only because the new moon is in a sextile with Chiron, but also because Mars too is about to come into a sextile with Uranus and Taurus as well. So this to me is another indicator that even though we are very angry and frustrated about some things from the past that are creeping on the life that we're now in, that's supposed to be different, that we're supposed to be moving forward on. Even though there's a part of us that's still angry, sad, and confused about those things, there's another part of me that feels like we're either getting some of the insights that we need about the past to kind of satisfy us, or that we are learning how to be okay in the in-between space with both worlds and how to make our peace with the process, Mars sextile Uranus, and how to stabilize as we move forward. So I don't want to paint the picture like it's all bad. I don't want to paint the picture like we're trying to feel comfortable and all the past is back, hard, heavy, can't escape. I do feel like we have some kind of help to overcome the past, or some kind of brief reprieve that helps us to move on and helps us to get a different way of thinking that it is that we need. But even though we are getting either a brief reprieve from some of this frustration or a little bit of insight about the past to help us kind of stabilize things, I do not believe that we have all the answers that we need in order to move forward. One reason why I do not think that we have all the answers that we need to overcome the past and to get rid of it and to move on is because at the time of this new moon, Venus is still retrograde and it's conjunct Mercury, and it's square Neptune and Pisces. So what this means to me is that even though at this new moon, we may be getting some of the answers to the past that we need, or we may be finding some way to at least stabilize amidst a lot of these questions and confusion, that there's still more answers that we need and still more things that need to be cleared up that are not going to happen all at once and that are probably not going to happen now, but are going to need more time to occur over the course of the next month. And talk about how that may play out my monthly horoscope on my website, but it's going to take more time to do. The whole point of this new moon in Gemini, however, is not that we are getting all of the answers to the old stuff, The point of this new moon in Gemini is that we are at least starting the process. The point of this new moon in Gemini is not that we are totally clearing up the past. The point of the new moon Gemini is that we are starting to clear up the past, starting to get more serious about clearing up the past, about getting to the bottom of these things, and about finally clearing up all the baggage so that we can move on. And I think that's what I'll end with. Anything else I want to mention? Yeah, I'm going to talk about the inside degree. I'm going to read it. I got it on a separate computer screen over here. The inside degrees wasn't written by me. It was written by someone else. You can find it online, but I'm going to read it here. The inside degree, I'm going to read 2 degrees Gemini. That's the one that I like the best. Says, a neatly compacted little world. Everything fits together splendidly. Each detail is highlighted, mentally known to be right where it belongs. This to me is Sun, Trine, Saturn. There is a feeling this week, Sun, Trine, Saturn, like I'm figuring it out. Maybe not all at once, or maybe suddenly and unexpectedly, you know, maybe not figuring it out and then things all of a sudden come. You know, how it comes is not the point. It's like it could come in weird ways. It could come suddenly and unexpectedly, whatever. The whole point that I really wanted to tease out is that with the Sun, Trine, Saturn, in light of this inside degree, is that we are in some way at this new moon in Gemini figuring out how to fit things together. That we are in some way at this new moon in Gemini figuring out how to put the pieces together now that we're in a very different space in life so that we can be okay in it. There is part of us at this new moon in Gemini that's thinking, okay, I'm getting the hang of this thing. This new life has been going on for a few months now. I've been trying to make it happen for a bit longer than that. I'm getting it. I'm putting things in place. I'm organizing things. You know, I'm fitting things where they need to be. But the next sentence of the inside degree says, but everything is static. No movement destroys the coherence. Why is everything static? If we're learning how things need to be or can be to be better in this different space, why is everything static? Why is nothing moving? The past is still around. It's hard to step into your neatly organized life. It's hard to step into things starting to, maybe neatly organized isn't the right way to explain it, but maybe it's hard to step into something that we are starting to organize, that we are starting to get into order. Maybe it's hard for us to step into something that we're starting to get into order because old things from the past are still around. And because we're kind of in a new life, but we're also kind of still in the past, it's hard to move because these two opposites are pulling at each other. And because these two opposites, our new life and the past, are pulling at each other, there's nothing happening. They're kind of happening, but they're not really happening. There's this feeling of like, I'm kind of stuck. I'm kind of moving forward, but the past, there's an equal pull, the past and the future, getting us at a standstill. Maybe that's the only thing I'll say. Okay, the next line of the inside degrees. You remember the way it is supposed to be and reconstitute all good things from the past while inwardly craving to break through to something new. So that to me is also an indicator that we are trying to fit our world together to be okay in a new place. But we're feeling stuck, static, because we're being pulled back to the past. Okay. Because we're feeling stuck, I get the sense that we could be, a bit bored or a bit tired. We're a bit bored or a bit tired because we're tired of these cycles. We want to break through to something new. We're tired of it. I'm tired of being in between. I'm tired of being half and half. I'm tired of new old. I'm tired of old. I'm tired of everything. There's this feeling of, I'm tired of it. I'm starting to organize things better, but I'm still being pulled back from the past. I'm not moving. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of taking baby steps. I'm tired of taking baby steps in life. I'm tired of, the North Node was in Cancer for the past year and a half. I'm tired of moving sideways. I'm tired of taking baby steps. I'm tired of moving sideways. When am I going to be able to take a big step? When am I going to be able to take a big leap? I don't know if it's going to be this month. It's coming soon. I think next month is going to be huge. New moon, solar eclipse in Cancer. Coming soon. But this month we're feeling kind of got the new life right, kind of working the new life out, but still stuck in the past, not moving anywhere, bored, a little bit annoyed. I want something different. I want to take bigger strides forward. Few lines later, the inside degrees, but underneath, slowly, gradually, you are losing all interest in this pattern and seeking a way out of it, which in the fullness of time may be there. You can let go of the need to please everybody and make perfect sense and discover the great bulk of your being lying dormant, waiting for the future to dawn. Yeah, that's like a loaded sentence. Wasn't planning on talking about this one, I guess. But there's a lot of this about, man, I feel like the old ways of making sense of things just aren't going to work anymore. And we're trying to keep everything together to make sense of our future, to have it right. But even though we're trying to make sense of our future, to have it right, part of the ways that we're making sense of our future that we feel like we're figuring out are still attached to old things that aren't working, that aren't right, that are keeping us stuck. So I also feel by reading this sentence too that there's still a need for a totally different way of making sense of things that may not make sense at first, but that will make sense eventually, and to kind of let go of, I don't know, that's an interesting one. Anything else I want to say about that? Because I'm like, I don't know if that's a message for this new moon, with the letting go, with the making perfect sense, discover the great. Maybe it is. There is. I think I'm just gonna have to go with it. There is this need to. Something's gotta give. That's all. That's what I'm feeling. Something's gotta give. We're trying to step into the future. We're still stuck in the past. Nothing's moving. We're bored. We're frustrated. We're tired. Something's got to give. And what has to give is that our perspective has to change. We can't keep thinking about our lives by this old stuff. We have to find ways to break through the old, to break it up and to get it moving. That is going to have to eventually come. That I don't think is going to come quite at this new moon, but that we're trying to get to. The last sentence of the inside degrees is needing relief and release to feel alive and to know that it is possible to find real satisfaction in living. So if we can break free from this like loggerheads between the past and the future and staying stuck by allowing ourselves to come up with a very new perspective on life, a very new way of thinking and talking, go figure. If we can do that, then we can start to feel alive again and to find real satisfaction in living. That I think is what's trying to happen here. Is that we're trying to find a way to break free from these old things of the past so that we can finally move forward. That's going to require us to have some altercations with the past so that we can get a new perspective on it and move forward in time. Now, your card for the new moon is the Knight of Pentacles reversed. You know, this is reversed. And it's Pentacles, and we're in an air sign, which is not very Pentacles to me. So perhaps what this makes me think is that this new moon in Gemini, we could not feel super set in life. We could not feel super solid. I don't really think we've felt that for a long time anyways. But we could not feel that. We could not feel that because there's still some stuff that's unresolved, that's keeping us stuck, that's preventing us from moving on. Not only could we not feel set and solid in life, like we may have been hoping to after last month's new moon in Taurus, but to me, the Knight of Pentacles is also a very slow one. We could also feel like things are just happening slowly or not in the way that we might like. I think that this card is saying that that is okay. It's okay for things to happen slowly. Maybe a Gemini won't like that, but it's okay for things to happen slowly. Like a lot of the things that we are processing from the past are old things that are going to take time to process. So this card is a reminder to like not rush the process. These things take time, and that's okay, and they're going to be done with soon, and we're going to have dealt with them soon. So just take the time that you need to address them, and don't worry if you feel a little bit out of sorts in the process. So that's what I'm going to say here. You may not feel super solid this new moon with all these things from the past still aren't resolved. That's okay. You'll get there eventually. Take the time now to address these old things and to get on better footing with them so that you can move forward. The card at the bottom of the deck is Death upright. And what this means to me is that perhaps taking the time, maybe twofold, is that perhaps taking the time to resolve these old things from the past is going to bring a major transformation about in our lives that I think has been latent, that I think we've been waiting to happen, but haven't quite felt the oomph behind. So by us taking the time to resolve these old things and get the answers to these old questions is going to help a permanent transformation to occur in our lives and to really feel a transformation to occur that we've been waiting for. Okay. Another interpretation of this card as well, it is twofold. Not only is dealing with the old stuff going to give us a major transformation and a majorly different way of being in life, but also perhaps before we can get to that different place in life, we may also need to transform the way that we're thinking about the past as well. So I'm associating this with like two transformations. In order for us to overcome the past, we need to transform the way that we think about the past. And once we transform the way that we think and communicate and talk about and deal with the past, then the past is going to be closed out. And then we're going to experience another major transformation we've been waiting to happen. That's really going to start to break some things loose in life and get things going. That's going to be key. Either of those interpretations could be true for you or both. You could only have one or you could have both. Could be either. The main thing that's important though is that dealing with this old stuff is going to take some time, and to not rush the process as these things start to shift and to break loose. So that is your forecast for the new moon in Gemini. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share with your friends, and I will talk to you later.